Take a seat as you welcome the wonderful Grace Wheeler to the stage. Give her a round of applause. Here she is.
Good morning, everyone. How you guys doing? You all right? No, you can do better than that. I said, are you all right? It's so wonderful to be with you today. Before we go any further, why don't you turn to the person next to you and say, you're looking good today. Now, why don't you turn to the person on the other side who you didn't choose first, #awkward, and say, you're looking all right too. There was a girl. She was 8 years old. She had blonde curly hair and red shiny shoes. And she had a great start to life. She loved both of her older sisters. She had brilliant parents. She loved Disney and going to the park, and singing was her favorite thing to do. But suddenly, when she was 5 years old, tragedy struck. As this little girl with blonde curly hair and red shiny shoes, her mum was on her way to work one morning. The car skidded on some ice, flipped over 3 times and smashed into a tree, and was left there for 4 hours as cars drove back and forwards thinking it was just a wreck and no one was inside, until a taxi driver had a sense that he should stop. He got out of the car, walked over, and saw this little girl's mum in a really bad way. She was airlifted by air ambulance to the local hospital and went straight into surgery. And in that moment, that little girl's life changed, because fear and anxiety and hopelessness set in. But fast forward a few months, and that little girl with blonde curly hair and red shiny shoes, her mum made a full recovery, but she didn't. This little girl still was anxious, worried, fearful, hopeless, almost every day of the week. It impacted her school life, it impacted her eating habits, it impacted her friendships, her relationships. But skip forward a couple of years, and this little girl with blonde curly hair and red shiny shoes, she was invited to an event a little bit like this, where somebody got up on a platform and told her about a God in heaven that loved her so much that he sent his one and only son, Jesus, to live a life that she couldn't live, but die a death that she deserved to die. And that night, that little girl ran home. She ran up the stairs into her bedroom. She opened the curtains and looked up into the night sky, and she thought this: maybe, just maybe, there's a God. And maybe, just maybe, he loves me. And maybe, just maybe, he wants to have a relationship with me. That night, that little girl with blonde curly hair and red shiny shoes, she asked Jesus to come and live inside of her heart. She committed to following him for the rest of her days. That night, that little girl's life changed forever. That little girl was me. At the age of 8 years old, I said yes to Jesus. And Jesus does not say, come follow me, it's happily ever after. In fact, he says just the opposite. Come follow me and there will be cost. There will be trouble. You will face trial, but do not fear, because I've overcome it. And that's what I've known, as I've kept my eyes fixated on the author and perfecter of my faith. Best decision I've ever made. Because God's love is personal. It's for you. And God's love is public. It's for everyone. And God's love is powerful. I believe it can break through any chain. A few years ago, I was a street dancer. It's amazing how cool you can look with a cap on and a shirt tied around your waist. And I would travel around the UK with a group of dancers, and I'd go into schools like the ones that you guys go to, and I'd take lessons and assemblies and lunch clubs, and I'd put on events at the end of the week where we would get up and we would perform, and then we'd talk a little bit about our faith. And it was really cool. We travelled in this big black van. It was super cool, blacked out windows, except it was a Vauxhall. And anyway, we would drive around the country and we would talk to young people about Jesus. And this one week, we're in Bournemouth on the south coast. And we're having an incredible time. We're doing like 6 lessons a day, lunchtime clubs, evening activities. It's amazing. The youth workers really got their money's worth. And at the end of the week, we put on this event, and we'd invited all of the school to come. And so at the end of the week, on a Friday night, I gathered the girls before we got on the platform. I said, listen, girls, I'm really hungry. Okay, I'm already hungry, and we've got an hour to go. But we're going to go for Nando's at the end. Who here likes Nando's? Shout out your favourite order. 3, 2, 1. Pita bread, someone said. I'm sure that's a bit bizarre. I love the medium chicken wings. My preference. Anyway, so I said to the girls, listen, after this, we're gonna go Nando's, we're gonna go get some donuts, #healthy living, and then we're gonna drive back up to Birmingham, right? So anyway, we begin the event. It's about an hour long on a Friday night, about 7 o'clock in the evening, and we've got about 100 young people in this room. And we performed, and then I'd got up and I was talking about Jesus and how he changed and transformed my life. And suddenly, the door swings open, bam! That woke you up. And in walks in this year 11 lad. He's pretty hench with a cheeky grin. And he walks to the back of the school hall, he sits down on a chair and he skids it back. And he gives me this beautiful glare that often year 11s give me. Some of you are giving me now. It's almost as if to say, show me what you got. And so he sits down and I carry on. And at the end of the night, I'm really excited for Nando's and my donuts, but I feel like God speaks to me. Now let me clarify for me what that means. For me, when I've heard from God, it's never been an audible voice. For some people, I know that it has been. But for me, it's like a thought that's on repeat that I just can't shift, right? And that's what happened. It was almost as if this thought I just couldn't shake. And the thought went a little bit like this: you need to go and talk to the lad at the back. And I'm like, Lord, I need a Nando's. Anyway, this thought I just couldn't shift. And so anyway, I said to the girls, I really feel like we need to go and talk to this lad at the back. And they kind of follow me like very hungry sheep. And so we go and sit at the back of the hall, and I sit down and I say, hey, what's your name? He says, hey, I'm here. I said, hey, it's great to meet you. I said, what did you think? I'm not going to tell you the words that he used, but you can fill in the blanks, but it wouldn't be appropriate to say in this space. Essentially, he told me that everything I just said was a load of rubbish. And then, for 45 minutes, told me all the reasons under the sun why he believed that God didn't exist. And believe you me, I was kind of coming round to his way of thinking. That was a joke. I've got a dance diploma, right? This kid was clever. He was head boy, head of the chess club, loved science. I'm like, Lord, unless you want me to give him an interpretive dance right now, I don't feel like I've got much. And so anyway, I said to God, just in the quietness of my own heart, my own mind, I just said, God, is there anything that you want to say? And I felt like he'd give me a word for this lad, but really specific. And sometimes Christians call it like a word of knowledge about somebody. Sometimes it's as though God kind of shares a perspective about somebody, a truth about somebody that only he can. And so anyway, I said to this lad, listen, the God that you don't believe in, I feel like he's just spoken to me. Do you mind if I share what I think he's saying to you? And he was like, yeah, sure. I was like, wait a minute. It's going to take me a second. Because this is what I believe God was saying. At the age of 7 years old, Dad walked out on him. And the reason he can't relate to me as a God of love, as a God who is a father, is because his earthly father has abandoned him, has rejected him, and left him. And there's so much pain there that he can't reconcile that there's a good God or there's a good father that loves him. I'm sat on a school hall on a November night in Bournemouth, feeling pretty hangry, desperate for Nando's, and I'm concerned. But I take a big step because I think this: what if I get it wrong? What if I mess it up? What if I make a mistake? What if, I mean, he already thinks I'm a wacko. What if I confirm it? And then I think this: or what if God is speaking? And what if he has an encounter with God? And so I ask him permission, always do that first. I said, I might be totally wrong, but this is what I feel like God's saying. And I tell him exactly what I've just told you. And as tears start to stream down this year 11 lad's face, he looks at me and he says this: how did you know that? I said, I'm not a stalker. I said, I feel like the God that you don't yet believe in, he loves you, he knows you, he sees you, and he wants to have a relationship with you. That lad on that Friday evening on November in Bournemouth looked at me and said this: I don't know how to pray, but will you teach me? The next week he started something called the Alpha Course, where he could discover more about Jesus. Do you know that he didn't realize that for the last 2 years, 2 of his friends had been praying for him to come to know Jesus? That is a life transformed, and that is a life where God has encountered them. God's love is personal, it's for you. And it's public, it's for everyone. A few years ago, I met my best friend. She's called Jo. And I met Jo when I was 13, she was 12. She was blonde at the time, I was brunette, and we bonded over our mutual love of Taylor Swift. And we went through the highs and the lows of teenage life together, and we're still the very best of friends to this day. However, the big difference was that I loved Jesus and she didn't. And so our life choices, our lives look slightly different. But when I asked God, how can I share you with Jo, I believe he gave me this super profound. And if you're taking notes today, you might want to take this note. It was this: be the best friend that you can be. Profound, right? So that's what I did. I was the friend that Jo would ring up in crisis. I was the friend that Jo would sit with when she was crying over a heartbreak. I was the friend that she rang when she got into hairdressing school. I was the friend that she rang when she got engaged and then asked me to be her bridesmaid. I was the friend that she rings in the highs and the lows of life. That's what I've been for Jo. I've been the best friend that I can be, and hopefully pointed her to Jesus through our conversations and through the way that I live my life. But that was the biggest difference until a couple of years ago. I began to pray for Jo every day to become a Christian. Really intentionally, every day, I began to pray that Jo would become a Christian, a follower of God. Because I began to see that the way that she was living life, what she was chasing, money, career, grades, relationships, and nothing is wrong with any of those things in essence, but when you get your whole value from that, that's when it can become dangerous. And so anyway, I began to pray for Jo on the daily. And I can tell that our conversations are getting deeper and more frequent. And then a few months pass, and I'm at an event like this, and someone challenges me from the stage to text somebody that I've been praying for and journeying with, asking them how I can pray for them today. So that's what I did. I get out my phone and I text Jo. I say, hey babe, how you doing? Just wondering, how can I pray for you today? You won't believe the text that I got back. She says this: hey Grace, I'm actually in Croatia. I'm thinking, thanks for the heads up. My phone bill's going to be sky high. Anyway, she says, hey, I'm in Croatia. It's funny you should text. Yesterday, on the beach, in my own time, I welcomed Jesus into my life. Will you pray that when I get home, I find a church? And I tell you that because transformation sometimes comes in a moment like it did for Archie, but transformation sometimes takes years. And God is there in the process. And so for Jo, I met her when I was 13 years old. I'm now 28. She became a Christian just over 2 years ago. That's a lot of years of praying, right? It's a lot of years of being the best friend that I could be, of putting God on display in my everyday, because that's what evangelism is. That's what living out the gospel is, putting God on display in my everyday. God's love is personal, it's for you. God's love is powerful. God's love is public, it's for everyone, but God's love is powerful. It breaks through any chains. And do you know what? She's now the best evangelist I know. Jo is a Christian, and she is a hairdresser now. And she works in a salon, and I often go to that salon to get my hair done. And she used to talk about Jesus in hushed tones. She'd be cutting my hair, and she'd go, "Oh, so how's Jesus and your relationship with God?" You know, she'd keep it really quiet. And now she's cutting my hair, and she's like, "Well, Jesus said this to me yesterday, and I feel like Jesus is asking me to do this." And da-da-da. Anyway, we're in the salon a few months ago, and I'm sat here. This lady's getting her hair set. I don't really know what that means, but it's a term, so we'll go with it. So she's sat here, and she looks over. She starts listening to our conversation. She turns around. She says, "Are you Jehovah's Witness?" And Joanna goes, No. She don't knock on your door in that way. I'm thinking, what way do I knock on her door? She's like, "Come over here, she'll tell you about Jesus. She told me, she'll tell you, come on." So she slides her chair over to me while her hair's getting set with this big blower. And I'm trying to tell her about Jesus. And then later on that day, someone is blow drying my hair. She works for the salon, otherwise that would be weird. And she begins to ask me questions. And she talks about the fact that she's been getting some tarot cards read, and she's been trying to work out kind of spiritually what she believes. And I said this, after a while of looking and seeking, can I tell you what I've discovered? That Jesus is the only way to God. Can I tell you about him? John 3:16. In the Bible, it's a really well-known verse. I'm going to read it to you in a minute. But if you've got a Bible, you might want to open up to it. I've discovered that Jesus transforms lives. And he is looking in the everyday moments to encounter you. God's love is personal. It's for you. And maybe you need to know that today. Maybe you need to hear that today, that you've thought, do you know what, Grace, I've heard a lot about this, but actually I need to know that today it's for me. God's love is public. It's for everyone. And God's love is powerful. It can break through chains. And God wants to use you, I believe, in your everyday. Because Jesus took a bunch of disciples. Young adults, young teenagers. And he just said, come follow me. Come apprentice under me. Come discover who I really am. Come discover my ways, because my ways are higher than your ways. And he lived a life that we couldn't live, but died a death that we deserve to die, all because right at the beginning of time, when we were created as humankind, we thought that we could do better doing it on our own. And that brought something called sin, which is just another word for mess and pain and shame into our world. Just look on your Instagram, just look on your Facebook feed, just look on the news, just look outside your window, look inside our own lives, and we see what has been created as a result of not being connected with God. And then Jesus came to say, do you know what, even though you deserve to be punished for all the stuff that you've done wrong, I love you that much that I'll come and take your place. And so he hung to a cross and took all of the pain and all of the shame, all of the sin of the entire world, all of my mess and all of yours on his shoulders so that we could be reconnected with God. And 3 days later, he proved that even death couldn't hold him down. Jesus' love is personal, it's for you. It's public, it's for everyone. And it's powerful. Let's just read this last verse, and then I'm going to invite the host to come back up. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Thank you so much for listening to me this morning. If you've got any questions off the back of what I shared, why not put them in the box or text them in? But also, I'm hanging out throughout the day. I love making friends. So will you come and introduce yourself to me, say hey, and also maybe ask me any questions off the back of what I've shared. I'd love to journey with you today. You guys are brilliant. I'm Grace. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.